All right. Welcome back to Occult Archives. You know, the podcast where we dig into the real stories behind history's most feared books.
That's right. From those mystical grimoires to those ancient religious texts, we're diving deep into these books.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking the books that they say are just too dangerous to even read. But we read them anyway, right?
We do. We read them anyway, and we report back.
That's right. So this week's episode 196, we're talking the Book of Aquarius. This one claims to unlock the Philosopher's Stone.
Oh, yeah. You ever heard of that one?
Oh, yeah, yeah. This is one that's been, I don't know, I've heard whispers about this one for years, you know.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of a legendary text in alchemical circles, but it's not your typical dusty, cryptic alchemical manuscript, is it?
No, not at all. This one's a PDF, and it's really interesting. It claims that the Age of Secrets is over.
Oh, wow. So it's like a modern take on alchemy then.
It really is. It's like alchemy for the digital age. It's written in plain English, no weird symbols or codes, and it promises a clear and simple, almost scientific explanation.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the book is laid out pretty methodically.
Yeah.
You've got your introduction, a foreword, 15 chapters of theory, 12 chapters on the practical stuff, and then 3 chapters of additional info.
So it really seems to cover all the bases.
It really does. But before we get too far into that, I mean, we got to talk about what this book actually claims.
Yeah, like what's so special about this Philosopher's Stone anyway?
Well, according to the Book of Aquarius, it's not just some myth. It's a real substance that anyone can make at home using natural scientific processes.
Okay, I know.
That's what it says. And get this. This stone, they say, can reverse aging, cure all diseases, extend life indefinitely, and of course, transmute metals into gold.
Whoa. So we're talking like immortality and infinite wealth. That's a pretty bold claim.
Yeah, it's pretty out there. But that's what makes this so fascinating, right? I mean, think about it. Throughout history, alchemists have been searching for this legendary philosopher's stone, and now this PDF comes along and says, hey, it's not a secret anymore.
So our job today then is to really unpack these claims, look at the author's arguments, and see how they connect with, what we know about historical alchemy from our other sources.
Exactly. We're going to be your guides through this wild world of alchemical theory and practice. And by the end, you'll have a really good understanding of this, well, maybe not good enough to actually make the Philosopher's Stone,
Probably not, no.
but definitely good enough to hold your own in a conversation about it.
That's right. All right, so where do we start?
Well, one thing that really jumps out about the author's approach is this emphasis on simplicity. They keep saying things like, truth is always simple, beautiful, and easy to understand.
That's interesting.
And they really stress that you can make the Philosopher's Stone using natural scientific methods. No magic, no rituals, just good old-fashioned science, they say.
Okay, so it's not like a spiritual thing. It's more like practical.
That's the impression I got, yeah. And this idea of following nature's lead is actually a recurring theme in alchemy. The Book of Aquarius.pdf, for example, says that you have to work together with nature and from nature to make the Philosopher's Stone.
That's interesting. So you're working with nature, not against it.
That's right. And there are echoes of this idea going way back to the 14th century. The alchemist Peter Bonis compared making the stone to growing a tree from a seed.
Okay, I see. Like it's a natural process that just unfolds if you provide the right conditions.
Exactly. And then in the 17th century, you have Herbigerus talking about creating a philosophical microcosm, basically, the stone, by imitating the methods that the creator used to make the macrocosm, the universe.
Wow. So they're saying that the same fundamental laws govern both the huge universe and this tiny little stone.
That's right. And the author of the Book of Aquarius seems to agree with that. They emphasize this idea of mimicking nature's methods, really understanding how the universe works on a fundamental level.
And then using that knowledge to, create something extraordinary.
Precisely. Now, the book also introduces this concept of a life energy, which they describe as the smallest particle, the raw, undetermined energy that everything is made of.
Okay. It almost sounds like they're talking about some kind of universal building block, like the smallest possible unit of existence.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And you know what this reminds me of? The Chinese concept of qi.
Oh, yeah, that vital energy or life force that flows through everything.
Exactly. And the book even acknowledges this similarity, saying that this life energy is like the single qi that encompasses both heaven and earth.
That's fascinating. So we're seeing this convergence of, Western alchemical thought and Eastern concepts of energy.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder if maybe these ancient traditions were tapping into some kind of universal truth about the nature of reality.
Yeah, really does.
And this life energy isn't just some abstract concept.
Yeah.
According to the book and some of our historical sources, it actually has incredible medicinal properties.
Medicinal properties.
Yeah, the book claims that the Philosopher's Stone can cure all diseases and even reverse aging. And some alchemists from the past, like Figulus in the 17th century, believed that it could preserve the body from decay and potentially grant immortality.
Wow, so this Philosopher's Stone is not just about gold, it's like the ultimate medicine.
That's right. Figulus even described it as a blessed powder with a bunch of beneficial effects, like it
Right.
makes you sweat, it's a laxative, it's a diuretic.
It's like a cure-all tonic.
Yeah, basically. And in Chinese alchemy, there's this concept of tan, which is also seen as this incredibly powerful medicine. Cheng Putuan and Ko Hung, they both wrote about how tan can heal the body and even allow you to transcend death.
Wow. So again, we're seeing this parallel between Western and Eastern alchemical thought.
It's amazing, right? And it really speaks to this age-old human desire for a universal cure, a way to overcome our physical limitations.
Totally. Now, what about the classic alchemical goal? Turning lead into gold.
Oh yeah, the transmutation of metals. The author of the Book of Aquarius is very confident that the Philosopher's Stone can do that.
How does that fit into historical alchemical beliefs?
Well, the book talks about how nature itself has this process of purifying substances, and that gold is like the end result of that process.
Okay, so gold is seen as the most perfect metal.
Exactly. And alchemists believe that base metals like lead are just imperfect gold. They're on their way to becoming gold, but they haven't gotten there yet.
And the Philosopher's Stone can accelerate that process.
That's the idea. It can somehow speed up or perfect this natural transmutation that's already happening.
Interesting. But it's kind of ironic that this book claims to unlock the secrets of alchemy when alchemy itself is all about secrecy.
Yeah, that's a good point. The author keeps saying the age of secrets is over. But historically, alchemists have been notoriously secretive about their knowledge.
I mean, the text itself even talks about these jealous sages who used coded language to hide their secrets from the unworthy. And there was this anonymous German philosopher who said that the art is described obscurely because if everyone knew it, no one would work and it would lose its value.
So maybe it was about protecting the value of their knowledge.
That's one possibility. But there are other theories, too. Some alchemists might have thought that this knowledge was just too dangerous to share with the masses.
Right, like it could fall into the wrong hands and be used for evil purposes.
Exactly. And some might have believed that words just weren't adequate to describe the true depths of alchemical understanding, so they had to resort to allegory and metaphor.
Yeah, like trying to explain the taste of chocolate to someone who's never had it before.
Exactly. It's just beyond words. And the Book of Aquarius actually warns against taking these allegorical expressions literally.
So maybe the real secret is not a recipe or a formula, but a certain way of seeing the world, a certain understanding of nature's hidden processes.
That's a really intriguing thought. Now, the book also goes into detail about the cycles of nature, like the daily cycle, the lunar cycle, the water cycle.
Right, and they say that these cycles are driven by the principle of yin-yang, the interplay of opposite forces.
And that these cycles are essential for growth and development in the natural world.
That's right. And they argue that the Philosopher's Stone also develops in a cyclical way, with evaporation and condensation playing key roles.
So it's like mirroring the natural world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They even have some biological examples to support this. Like they talk about how shellfish can create their shells even when there's not a lot of calcium in the water.
Really?
Yeah, and they reference the work of Kervran and Puri, who studied these kinds of things.
Interesting. So they're saying that nature already has these built-in transmutation processes.
That's the idea. Like maybe the Philosopher's Stone is just a way of harnessing those processes.
I see. And what about the sun and the moon? They seem to play a pretty big role in the book, too.
Yeah, they're super important, both symbolically and literally. The sun is like the father, representing fire and the active principle, and the moon is like the mother, representing water and the passive principle.
Classic alchemical symbolism.
Absolutely. And Peter Bonis, way back in the 14th century, he also wrote about how the sun and moon influence all growth, including the development of the stone.
The book also makes a big deal about the fact that the sun and moon appear to be the same size from Earth, even though the sun is actually much, much bigger.
Yeah, they think that's significant, like a sign of some kind of perfect harmony or balance.
And they connect this to the fundamental substances that they believe make up the stone.
Right, like the sun and moon are the cosmic counterparts to these earthly substances. Now, one of the most important concepts in the book is the Hermetic principle of as above, so below.
Ah, yes, that famous idea that the same laws govern the macrocosm and the microcosm.
Exactly. And the author of the Book of Aquarius uses this principle to justify both the possibility and the specific method of creating the Philosopher's Stone.
Okay, so they're saying that because this principle is true, we can create something on Earth that reflects the cosmic order.
That's right. And they believe that everything ultimately comes from the One, whether you call it God or life energy, and that everything is just an adaptation or manifestation of that One.
Wow, that's a pretty profound idea.
It is. And it really shows how alchemy is not just about chemistry or physics, but also about philosophy and spirituality.
All right, so we've talked about the theory. What about the practical stuff? Does the book actually tell you how to make the Philosopher's Stone?
Well, it does get into some practical details, but it's still pretty general. Like they mentioned using urine as a starting ingredient.
Urine.
Yeah, I know it sounds weird, but Paracelsus, the famous alchemist, he also used urine in his work.
Okay, maybe there's something to it.
The book talks about how urine is undetermined, meaning it has the potential to become anything. And then they describe processes like distillation and calcination, which are basically ways of purifying and transforming substances.
So distillation is like separating the different components of a liquid by heating it up and collecting the vapors.
Yeah, that's the basic idea. And calcination is like burning something at a high temperature to drive off moisture and other volatile stuff.
Interesting. And they also talk about the importance of dry heat and moist heat.
Right. Roger Bacon, another famous alchemist, he also wrote about these concepts. And the book emphasizes that you need to control the temperature very carefully throughout the process.
Like it's a delicate operation.
It seems that way, yeah.
Ah,
And then there are these two distinct stages of the stone, the white stone and the red stone.
okay, what's the difference between those?
Well, the white stone is said to be able to transmute metals into silver, and it also has some medicinal properties. The red stone is even more powerful. It can transmute metals into gold, and it has even stronger medicinal effects.
So it's like an upgrade.
Yeah, you could say that. And the book mentions that the red potentiality is somehow hidden within the white stage. Roger Bacon also wrote about that.
Fascinating. And how do you go from the white stone to the red stone?
Well, they talk about this process called fermentation with silver or gold, which is supposed to stabilize the stone's frequency or something like that.
Frequency, like a vibration.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what they mean by that. But there's also another approach mentioned by Herbigerus, talmazibation with its own flesh and blood. It's pretty cryptic.
Sounds intense.
It does. Now, one of the things that the book presents as evidence for the Philosopher's Stone is the historical mystery of perpetual lamps.
Perpetual lamps. You mean like lamps that never go out?
Exactly. There are all these stories from history about lamps that burned for centuries without any fuel.
Really?
Yeah, like Plutarch and St. Augustine, they both wrote about them. And there's this story about a perpetual lamp being found in Edessa.
Wow, so that's like free energy forever.
That's what it seems like. And the book suggests that these lamps were powered by the Philosopher's Stone.
But how is that even possible?
I don't know. But St. Augustine, he thought these lamps were demonic.
Demonic.
Yeah. And then you have Ludovicus Vives. He thought it was just some kind of advanced technology that we don't understand.
So maybe the alchemists knew something that we've forgotten.
It's possible. And then there's the story of the Rosicrucians, who supposedly had a perpetual lamp in the tomb of their founder, Christian Rosenkreuz.
So this idea of perpetual lamps is connected to all sorts of esoteric traditions.
It really is. Now, the book also mentions this concept called takwin, which basically means creation or generation.
Creation, like making new life.
Yeah, something like that. And they connect it to the Philosopher's Stone, suggesting that it can somehow influence the fundamental properties of living things.
That's pretty wild.
They even bring up Paracelsus' idea of creating a homunculus.
A homunculus? What's that?
It's like a miniature artificial human. Paracelsus claimed that you could make one from putrefied sperm.
Okay, that's a little creepy.
Yeah, it's definitely out there. But the author of the Book of Aquarius suggests that this takwin concept is about using the Philosopher's Stone to nourish and direct biological development.
It's like using it to create new life or enhance existing life.
It seems that way, yeah. And it's interesting how they weave in all these connections to biblical narratives and ancient mythology.
Oh, yeah, they talk about King Midas's golden touch, the quest for the golden fleece, the mystical substance soma from the Rig Veda.
Right. And they even suggest that the long lifespans described in the Old Testament were due to the Philosopher's Stone.
So they're saying that all these stories are actually alchemical allegories.
That's what they seem to believe, yeah. And it's a common idea in alchemy, this idea that ancient myths and religious texts contain hidden wisdom about the nature of reality and the secrets of transformation.
Makes you wonder if maybe there's more to these stories than meets the eye.
Absolutely. Now, the book also lays out this cyclical view of history.
Oh yeah, they talk about the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age.
That's right. And they claim that knowledge of the Philosopher's Stone was widespread in the earlier ages, but then it became a secret during the Iron Age, and now we're on the verge of rediscovering it.
Interesting. So they're saying that history repeats itself in cycles.
That's the idea. And they place figures like Adam, Noah, and Paracelsus within this historical timeline.
And they also talk about the Rosicrucians and Francis Bacon.
Yeah, they think that Bacon's book, The New Atlantis, might actually be a description of a real Rosicrucian society with advanced knowledge and technology.
A secret society dedicated to alchemy and the advancement of human knowledge.
It's a pretty tantalizing idea.
Hmm.
But of course, not everyone has always believed in alchemy. The book acknowledges that there's been a lot of skepticism and even condemnation of alchemy throughout history.
Yeah, they mention the Dominican Directorium Inquisitorum and King Charles V, both of whom issued condemnations of alchemy.
Right. And Chaucer, in the Canon's Yeoman's Tale, he wrote about these charlatan alchemists who were basically just con artists.
So there's been a lot of fraud and deception associated with alchemy too.
Definitely. But the book also points to figures like Nicholas Flamel, who was widely believed to have successfully created the Philosopher's Stone.
Flamel was a real historical figure.
Right. He was. And there are all these legends about his wealth and his philanthropy, which people attributed to his alchemical success.
So maybe there's some truth to these alchemical claims after all.
It's hard to say for sure. And then there's the tragic story of James Price, who claimed to have transmuted metals, but was later accused of faking it and ended up committing suicide.
Wow, that's a sad story.
It is. And it shows how dangerous it can be to make claims about alchemy, especially if you can't back them up.
So where did all the alchemists go? Are there still alchemists today?
Well, that's a good question. The book speculates that maybe they went into hiding because it's hard to maintain a long lifespan in the modern world.
I mean, if you could live for centuries, you'd probably want to keep a low profile.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to draw attention to yourself. And they even suggest the possibility of a secret parallel civilization of alchemists, maybe like Shambhala.
Shambhala, that legendary hidden kingdom.
That's right. And they also mention theories about hollow earth or inner worlds, where these advanced civilizations might be hiding.
And they even bring up UFOs.
Yeah, they speculate that maybe UFOs are connected to this advanced hidden knowledge.
So it's like the ultimate conspiracy theory.
It kind of is. Now, the final part of the Book of Aquarius gets pretty abstract.
Okay, what do they talk about?
They talk about frequency and different planes of existence.
Like different levels of reality.
Yeah, that's the idea. And they say that the Philosopher's Stone operates at a higher frequency and can help people shift their own frequency, which can lead to expanded awareness and maybe even miracles.
So it's not just about physical transformation, but also about spiritual evolution.
That's right. And they even connect gravity to frequency, suggesting that things with similar frequencies are attracted to each other.
That's interesting.
And then they go on to talk about reality itself as a kind of dream.
Like the universe is just a projection of consciousness.
That's what they seem to believe, yeah. And they say that we're all creating our own little universes within this larger dream.
Wow, that's a pretty mind-blowing concept.
It is. So after this deep dive into the Book of Aquarius and historical alchemy, what are your main takeaways?
Well, I think the main thing is that the Philosopher's Stone is a real concept that's been pursued for centuries. And even if we can't say for sure whether it's actually possible to create it, the ideas behind it are incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. And it's amazing how these ideas about nature as a guide, this life energy, and the principle of as above, so below, how these have persisted across cultures and throughout history.
It really makes you wonder if maybe there's something to it, some kind of universal truth that we're just starting to glimpse.
Now, here's something for you to ponder. If this knowledge of how to create the Philosopher's Stone has been passed down through the ages, maybe even hidden from us intentionally, what does that mean for our current understanding of science and medicine? Could we be missing something huge?
I mean, if it's true that there's this substance that can cure all diseases and extend life indefinitely, that would completely revolutionize everything.
It would. And then there's the question of whether these hidden communities like Shambhala actually exist. Are there people out there who already possess this knowledge and are using it to live long, healthy lives?
Maybe they're watching us right now laughing at our ignorance.
Maybe they are. Or maybe it's all just a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah,
But either way, it's fun to think about, right?
it definitely is.
And that's the beauty of alchemy. It forces us to question everything we think we know about the world and to consider the possibility that there might be more to reality than we can see or even imagine.
It's a journey of exploration, both outward and inward.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's just the beginning. If you're intrigued by these ideas, I encourage you to do your own research, read some of the historical alchemical texts, and see where it leads you.
Who knows, you might even stumble upon the secret to the Philosopher's Stone yourself.
Or maybe you'll just have a really interesting time exploring the mysteries of the universe. Either way, it's a win-win.
That's right. Thanks for joining us on this alchemical adventure.
And until next time, keep seeking the truth, wherever it may lead you.